Yeah.
JP, I'm glad to see you here.
Thanks for speaking. Everybody. See.
I'm going to go ahead and mute myself, but it's nice to. It's nice to have you show up on my Zoom as the first person I see.
All right. Thanks, Stella.
I'm also having dinner in my office, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the video until you need my commentary.
Bill's on his way right now, guys. No.
Good evening, folks. What do we got?
Good evening.
That's Butch. Yeah.
Yes. I guess it is 6:04. I am late. We'll call the meeting to order. And Julie would call the roll.
Bill Joyce.
Here.
Mike Chiava.
Here.
Tom Mihalik.
Here.
Larry Curran.
Here.
Wendy Grace.
Here.
Happy to see you, Wendy. Neil Bolton. Mark Moudry. Butch Gerbrandt. Butch, I see your name there on the thing, so if you chime in, that's okay, but I've got you reflected. Matt Steitzer.
Here.
Stella Capocha.
Here.
Ivy Fredrickson.
Here.
Sean Fredrickson.
Here.
Josh Bryson. Eileen Joyce.
Here.
And JP Gallagher.
Here.
Okay, well, we have enough voting members to establish a quorum, and we have our third chief executive, Gallagher. Welcome. I think you probably attended these things in your previous capacities, but welcome. The first thing we got to get out of the way is the review of our December 8th, 2020 minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity to review it? And is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. We have to take a pause here and advise the public that they have an opportunity to phone in and make a comment on any item on the agenda, and we will see if anybody is interested in doing that. We're gonna give them 30 seconds. They have a nice little old-fashioned phone thing on there. (406-497). Comment on any item on the agenda. Last call. All right, you can make your comments, but you can't make them here. We'll move to the new business. And our main business on tonight's agenda is our annual financial report. And for that, I will turn it over to Danette Gleason. Is Danette, Danette?
I'm here. I'm just sharing my contents on my screen here.
Okay.
Oh. Could you see it, Jason?
Yes, it's available.
Is it the PDF of the budget or the financial? Because I have 3 screens going on here, so I can't really see which one you're seeing.
It's June 30th, 2020.
Okay. So as always, Chairman Joyce, members of the SARTA board, it's a pleasure to come before you and discuss the financial statement and the financials, the current financials of the Redevelopment Trust Fund. I'll just begin and then maybe we'll run into some questions and I'll give you, again, a summary and an update. Usually in the past, about this time when we came before you, we also gave you some investment information, and then we had the folks from the Board of Investments join us. We're going to do it a little bit different this year. We're going to give you that financial statement update and then a request that the Board of Investments come possibly in February or March to discuss the investment activity with you. They're pretty tied up now at the start of the legislature and then the beginning of the year. So we're going to delay that presentation. So to start with, I'm going to present the Redevelopment Trust Fund financials that were presented to our auditors and reviewed by our auditors. These statements are as of June 30th, 2020. So just looking through the balance sheet, the total assets were $14.9 million, consisting of both the cash and investments, as well as I think it's a little over $586,000 on June 30th. That was an adjustment to fair market value on the investments. We had some liabilities. They were claims that were outstanding to be paid that totaled $54,000, and then some accrued benefit or wages and benefits of $813. Those are the benefits and wages that are used in the open park space that we'll talk about in more detail when we go through each one of the summaries of the programs. So the fund balance was performing very well. We're still holding at $14.8 million. Like to point out that is actually slightly above what the starting point of when the SARTA board first organized and began functioning in late 2015, I believe it was. So we are, if you look at this and I look at some of the other information that we have presented, you're really only expending the dollars that we're earning in investment earnings. I'm just going to run down here to the budget to actual. Every year you work with Julia and then our staff, and we do a final presentation on the budget through the Council of Commissioners, but your recommendation has to be presented in this format. So for financial statements, you'll see that, again, interest income is steadily coming in. This is an environment right now where even last June, where we've seen interest rates drop to 0 in March when COVID hit. And so you're still able to realize $421,000 in interest earnings, which is pretty amazing. I guess the early recommendations and what you did as a board and jumped into the long-term investment pool with the state of Montana is right here is very apparent that it's paying off. The unrealized market gain is $576,000 as of June 30th. Again, pointing out that if you recall, And I think Commissioner Bolton had pointed out, as the interest rates, or I'm sorry, Board Member Bolton, as the interest rates drop, you see this significant increase because of the type of investments that we are invested in. So on June 30th, had we called and matured all investments and had that ability to mature investments, that would have been a realized gain of $576,000. As interest rates go up, this number is going to go down. But you're still going to hold, which your goal when we invested was to, and the type investments was to earn the realized interest income of the $421,000. So we can talk a little bit more about that, but in a nutshell, that's just really showing that your investments are performing well. And as intended when we originally developed the policy statements right in the beginning. The expenditures were $304,000. Then we also had transfers out because some of the grants were actually funded to Butte-Silver, and those transfers out are the $34,158. So again, showing that we are holding a fund balance of $14.8 million. The next sheet is more of a summary of the financial statements. I think this makes a little more sense. You're used to seeing the programs ran. So your expenditures and your budgets are ran through program numbers like this, not so much as the accounting that was mentioned above. So program 1 for last fiscal year, we spent $25,000. I believe most of that was, and Julia, jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong, but most of this was funds that were allocated to the Greeley Stormwater Project.
That's correct.
Okay, and then the Historic Preservation Program, it's a detail of expenditures that we'll talk about a little bit later, and there was $69,000 there. The open space is the funds that's allocated to the Parks and Recreation Department. $36,000 was spent in that area. Health initiatives is the health fund bucket, which we spent $38,620. Festivals, we spent $129,644. Nothing was budgeted or expended in the Silver Lake bucket, program bucket, where there's the $1 million still, and there's nothing has been spent. In program 7 is the Community and Economic Development bucket, and last fiscal year we spent $39,803. So this $38,000 ties back up to the total transfers and this expenditure line item of $304,000. Scrolling down here a little bit, your interest revenue. So we broke it out to show you how the interest revenue was earned. So we here at Butte-Silver hold a very small amount just for cash flow purposes in the STIP fund, and we earned $493 off of that. Part of the trust fund and the policy statement that we developed and the way that we developed the investment, I should say, with the Montana Board of Investments was that so much of the money that they had in the trust fund investment pool also had to be in a STIP account. So that's this segregation. And on those funds, we earned $28,000. And then on the investment trust fund itself, we earned $393,000. Again, the unrealized gain is the $576. Then we reconcile that one more time to show that on our financials, or in our accounting system both, we're showing the cash of $211. We take out any claims and wages payable, which was $54,000. We show the STIP investment of $88. So on June 30th of last year, Butte-Silver in their cash account was holding $157,000. In the STIP fund, or in the redevelopment trust fund, we were holding $157,000. So sometimes that gets confused that if I say Butte-Silver is holding it, sometimes that gets confused that we're holding it in our general fund, which is not the case. It's totally separate fund and totally separate investments. And then in the investment trust pool, the actual balances was $1.5 million in the STIP part of the investment trust pool and $12.4 million in the long term, and then your adjustment to fair market value. Total adjustments to fair market value for the whole year was that. So that's why we're down to the 14.8 again. The details, which I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on these, maybe you can ask questions if you have questions as follow-up. because you've had these in presentations, and I know Julie's talked a lot about the expenditures throughout the year as well as what you did in your budget processes. But I think what I need to point out here is that total allocation was $2 million in this program. And these allocation numbers come right out of the allocation agreement of how the buckets and programs had to be developed. So this the development of mine waste source areas started with 2 million. We have spent down the bucket to 1.5 million over the years, 1,442,000 there. The committed for this budget year for fiscal year 20 was 120,583, and in fiscal year 20, 25,000 was spent. So 95,000 budget authority was remaining, but the actual allocation was 1.5 million remaining. Program 2 is historic preservation. There was $1 million placed in this as well, according to the allocation agreement. We're down to $728,530. A lot of different projects has been done. In fiscal year 20, we spent 69,000. We had budgeted to spend 119,425. In program 3, the open space, which this is the parks, the money that goes to the Parks and Recreation Department. There was $1 million allocated. Pretty much every year we've been budgeting around $50,000 in that allocation. This year, spent out of that allocation was $36,000. The details, the 16,000 was in wages, and let's see, 10,000 was in operating supplies. There were some picnic tables purchased, and then security gate was installed, and then security services in the parks area that belong in the open space area. There was $2,558 spent, and then we paid a bill for $500 for planting and pruning and some weeding in the Superfund area parks. So left in that allocation is $638,438. That's this number here. I have to mention that I will provide the details in the PDF. I noticed that I did not provide these details of our general ledger of the salaries and benefits or the operating supplies, but I will provide them to you. It just is pages of supporting detail, but we will get them to you so you have them in your record. And then in program 4 is the health initiatives. Again, another $1 million was placed in this bucket. Of the remaining funds is $755,474. Last year in fiscal year 20, $38,620 was spent. There was the chemical mass balance study for $13,620, and then this $25,000 was a half of the healthy assessment or health study with St. James Healthcare that has to take place every 5 years, and this fund has been funding half of that, which is over, I think it's over 50,000, but we always commit the 50,000 out of this fund, or the health board commits it, and then SARTA has approved it. Then in program 5 is the festivals, that $1 million is allocated to this fund. This year, $129,644 was spent. The balance in this fund is $104,000. So this will be one, as Julia presents next year's budget, that there's a potential that you're going to want to allocate some different funds from the undesignated balances and move them into the festivals. Then in program 6 is the Silver Lake water system, and the $1 million is still within that fund. Again, per the allocation agreement, this bucket was created. And then program 7 is community and economic development. The $1 million was allocated in this fund. To date, we have $530,000 left. Several grants that you awarded last year did submit for some claim reimbursement. So that was the $39,803. And then in your undesignated funds, last year, we had spent nothing in fiscal year 20. I just wanted to show that in the prior year, you spent $12,170. Sometime I was doing a carrying of this $100,000 balance, but this last year, it's not really a true carryover. There's definitely, as you know, way more funds that are undesignated. But this always just tends to be, the balance tends to be what you budgeted. So do you want to take questions now, Chairman Joyce, or would you rather me jump into the actuals as of December 31st and then take questions?
Let's go.
Okay.
Let's talk through it now.
Okay. So, let's see. If it'll let me call it up here, I'm having some, okay. Sorry, I hope I'm not making you dizzy calling it up. So this is from July 1st through December 31st of 20. This is the actual report of actual expenditures. We don't usually prepare the financial statements. We prepare more of a summary sheet for you at this time. So in program 1, we haven't spent anything. In program 2, historic preservation for the fiscal year, so far $34,152 has been spent. In the open space, the Parks and Rec funds, we spent $13,527. Program 4, health initiatives, nothing has been spent. The festivals, $8,250. Silver Lake, nothing has been spent. And then in program 7, the community and economic development, $43,350 has been spent. So for this fiscal year, from July 1 to 20 to again through December 30th, $99,280 has been spent. We're holding a lot less STIP funds, as you can see here. We only had 11 cents of interest earnings, but actually our investment interest rate right now at STIP is like 0.00058 or something. It's way below anything. So that's anticipated right now in the economic times that we're in. In the trust fund investment pool STIP, you've earned $2,139. But again, to point out, you're right on target with the long-term trust fund investment pool of $161,000. Then you're going to see the market numbers switch, because you're going to see this significant change in the adjustment to fair market value when we start seeing interest rates switching. So that's what you have. This is just a year-to-date number, but that's the number that we have. So the total revenue, again, just year-to-date for this fiscal year. So we have a total fund balance of $14.9 million. We have cash, the Butte-Silver both holding on December 31st of $58,462. There was still some wages payable left out there of $813 that haven't been closed out, because we always wait for the audit to be finalized before we transfer out those wages. And then the STIP investment is $88 that have been earned to date. So Butte-Silver both holding $57,738. In the trust fund investment STIP, there's still 1.7. In the trust fund investment pool, the long-term portion of the investment, there's 12.4 million. And then your unrealized gain on the market is at 764,000. Okay. So moving on into the programs, the development of the mine waste source area, the $2 million allocation, nothing has been spent. We had budgeted 135,000, so we're still at 1.5 million remaining. That's this 1.5 million. Then in the historic preservation, 34,152 has been spent. Then we have 694,000 left in those funds. In program 3, we've spent the 13,527, and mainly consists of the salaries and benefits for the employees that work just at the time that they work in those areas. So 624,910 is left in that bucket. And then program 4, health initiatives, nothing has been spent this year, with 755,000 remaining. And I should show you the budget this year dropped to the 88,620. And then in program 5 is the festivals, and 8,250 has been spent for the Covalite film project. 96,000 of budget authorities remaining, and so we only have the 96,000 left in this fund to be spent. In the Silver Lake, there's the $1 million that's still allocated and not been expended. In community and economic development, this is the one I want to talk a little bit more about. because we really weren't sure how you wanted to show this. We originally started out with $1 million. This is where we had to transfer in the anticipation of the $730,000 that potentially, with the development agreement with Praxis, if the land acquisition has to take place and SARTA pays the 730 out, we had to have some place as a placeholder to put that in here so we could represent that. So we put it here. We can always move it to a different bucket or a different area, but it made more sense to us to place it here for right now. So that's why the $1 million, it started out with $1 million, but you're back up to 1.2 because we have added the $730,000 and you've spent $43,000. Then in the undesignated funds, again, we just are showing what was actually budgeted for the year out of undesignated funds, which is $200,000. So just in summary, you can see, when you start, I believe we started, like I said, a little bit over $14 million and you're still ending probably at a little bit higher. Get back up here. You're ending at 14.9, I guess. It's very strong performance. And from a financial standpoint, you are right on target. Exactly what the intention was to spend down, mainly spend down at least in the initial first years of the SARTA, the interest earnings, and that's exactly what's happening. So Chairman Joyce, is there any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question about your counting on program 7 there.
Okay.
You reflect now an initial allocation of the 1 million, but isn't in fact the program 7 is the spillover? So if we took all of the money allocated to the other programs and subtracted it from the 14 whatever we have million, that's the amount that's actually in that program 7 bucket, isn't that right?
So when we first set it up, we had a lot of conversations about that. So program 7 is the community and economic development bucket. And you kind of wanted to just start with $1 million as a placeholder in there. And then the undesignated bucket that's showing down here, down below, was kind of the carrying pot. The 65 account was kind of where you were budgeting any additional programs or funding. So I would have to say it's a combination between these undesignated funds here and this program 7 as to where the additional funding that we have available is. And so,
well, don't all those program numbers have to add up to what we have in the fund?
so they do. I think it was your way. I think originally the SARTA board had intended, and staff discussion, you wanted us to show just actual budgets in this number here. And you originally only put $1 million placeholder here because of the way that you chose to make your investments. And so you didn't want to show the whole remaining funds of like $5.5 million in these funds right here, because of your investment strategy was to only spend about $500,000 to $600,000 a year, not the whole pot of money. So that's how you chose to allocate it out and basically reserve the other funds, I would say, instead of show them on these reports. We can definitely show them in any fashion that you would like.
That's just more work for you. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding what was going on.
Yeah.
And I take it also that when you allocate the interest that's made on the whole fund, it's not allocated according to each specific program either. It's just in that.
Right. Correct, Chairman Joyce. It's not allocated per program. It's just the pot of money is allocated together. And then those funds, so the interest earnings that's up there is basically being placed in those undesignated or reserve funds.
Okay, I think I understand. Other questions from members?
Yes, Chairman Joyce. I'd just be interested in knowing how many funds have been spent since the beginning of the SARTA program, just out of curiosity. Is that possible?
I'm just looking at something here. So roughly about 6 million, 2.7 million total. I'm sorry, member, I couldn't tell who was talking. My screens, I can't see who's
That's been
talking, so I couldn't address you appropriately. I'm sorry about that.
Is there a way, I know that there was some funds expended before the actual SARTA board was up and running that we authorized. Does that roughly what million you said? 2.7 million, does that include the funds that were spent before we constituted ourselves? The council constituted us?
No, that would be exclusive of all of those funds.
Okay.
Yes, so there was funds spent on festivals and other activities, mine waste development areas. I can't remember it all. I could pull that all up for you and come back to the board and present that to you. But there was some funds spent that were dedicated and allocated to projects that were in line with the allocation agreement. And we moved forward with them prior to the board being developed.
And I think when we constituted the board, we approved all those things.
Yes, you did.
A full picture of the total amount spent from these
Yes.
funds and compare it to the interest. Looks like they're going to be pretty close.
Right. I think, yes, you're right on target. I mean, it's pretty amazing that it's coming that close, that you're just always spending those interest earnings. So.
Did you want additional information, Member Kiala?
No, she answered my question. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other questions? Well, thanks.
Okay. Now, Jason, you got to help me turn this back over because I'm not seeing you guys anywhere. Let's see.
Danette, if you bring your mouse to the top of the screen,
Mm-hmm.
it should give you a stop sharing option.
I'm trying to see it, but I can't see it. It's not. Oh, hold on. Maybe I can pull it down. Oh, no. Oh, I got it. I think I got it. We'll see. Did it work?
There you go.
Okay. Sorry.
One thing that I did notice, and we're probably going to have to discuss going forward, is that we're drawing on that festival fund at a faster rate than the other funds. And I think we're probably going to have a discussion here pretty quickly about taking some of the non-allocated funds and put it in that festival account. But that's something I think we'll probably have to take up maybe during the next meeting. Okay.
Yeah. So Chairman Joyce, that would definitely be the next budget cycle. We would have to have those discussions if you continued with allocation for festivals.
Yeah, and I think we want to do that.
Okay.
Okay. We ready to move on to our next item here, new business? Okay. Julie, I think this is for you. We have some issues with the lighting of the gallows frames.
Yes. So, okay. Okay. Thank you, everybody. So this evening I am presenting one additional term extension for the Main Street Uptown Butte Lighten Up Butte project. If you recall, the Lighten Up Butte grant application was submitted by Main Street Uptown Butte in the 2017 timeline of our notice for funding. And this particular grant was to hire a contractor to investigate the condition of lights on the previously lit head frames and then purchase or repair those lights for re-illumination. In addition to the original grant application, SARTA approved an extension. It was both a term extension and an expansion of the scope of work to repair the flagpoles, because at the time there was public comment that the flags were not being flown on the head frames, and it was due to an engineering malfunction with the size of the flagpoles. And so the scope of work was expanded at that point in time. To provide a project update, Main Street Uptown Butte selected Alliance Neon, a contractor out of Helena, Montana, through an RFP process, and they completed an examination of the repair needs for the lighting infrastructure on the head frames. Right after they were hired, they completed repairs to the lighting on the original head frame prior to the Folk Festival. And then a lightning strike damaged that, which was then repaired by Alliance prior to the initiation of the Anri Raw Irish Festival. They were meant to continue to proceed with the other head frames on the hill. However, someone on their team received an injury, which was not related to this project, and they had a pretty significant mechanical breakdown that impacted their ability to progress with the project, which was unfortunate. Because of that, they were not able to resume the work prior to the following spring. So George Everett with Main Street Uptown Butte provided a current status update, letting me know that the lighting tasks remain for the Steward, the Mountain Con, the Anselmo, Trevona, and Bell Diamond. One of the issues with Alliance Neon is when they were meant to resume, I guess, their work in the spring of 2019, they were not able to do so. And not only were they not able to use this contractor, there were some difficulties that Main Street experienced finding an experienced contractor with the equipment and the electrical experience in order to complete the elements of the project. During the summer, our friend at the World Museum of Mining had taken effort to hang flags on the newly repaired flagpoles, and through that relationship to do so at that high level, began collaborating with Markovich Construction, who provided their lift. Since that time, Markovich has picked up where Alliance left off, using offering their services as a community project, and they have been making progress at the Steward with the lights there, with materials that have been provided by Main Street Uptown Butte. Main Street would like to use the balance of the grant to complete the balance of the repairs this year. Their ability to proceed has been impacted by the COVID pandemic. As you can see in our financial report that was just presented by Budget Director Gleason, our expenditures this year are much smaller due to the pandemic, and that is because contractor availability has been a challenge for some of our grant recipients. And so Main Street has reached out to me to allow or to ask you for an extension of their contract, which would extend the contract through December 31st, 2021, which is this year, to complete the lighting repairs that are necessary that were identified by Alliance Neon as part of this grant, initially at the Trevona, the Steward, Mountain Con, Anselmo, Original, Orphan Girl, and Orphan Girl. I do provide a little bit of detail here as to what George has indicated is required. And there are about $19,600 remaining and would be reserved for labor or equipment purchases if necessary. Otherwise, materials that were initially purchased using these grant funds are on hand to complete the lighting upgrades and repairs. So that is staff's recommendation to approve the contract extension, and I will take questions.
Chairman Joyce, if I could, this is Wendy Grace.
Yes. Go ahead.
Just a quick question, because this is a county project, do we have to get bids or anything like that, Julia? Or are we okay to just say, I have no objection. Are we okay to say that's fine, go ahead?
Wendy, this is actually a Main Street Uptown Butte project lead, so we would not need to take care of those requirements. but George does tend to be pretty thorough in his diligence. I think the issue with this particular project is making sure that there's equipment to access the heights of those head frames, which can exceed 200 feet, and having a lift that can get there, and then also having the electrical expertise as well. Wendy, it is nice to see you at our meetings again. It's been a while. Thank you for your work you're doing.
Doesn't appear that there's any more comment. Is there a motion to approve the staff recommendation regarding the project?
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Is there a
second that.
Member Frederickson? Voting member Frederickson, I think. Stella.
That was Stella.
Oh, okay.
But it was.
All right, Stella, we'll give it to you. You're in the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
That was a late aye, not a no, I take it.
Correct.
The motion carries unanimously. I guess we have to have a moment here to see if anyone wants to publicly comment on a matter not on the agenda. It's always fun when it happens. Okay. It looks like we've gotten through all of our agenda items. Next, I think we just need to have to determine when we want to meet and get some input if there's any about what items you'd like to see on the next agenda. I think it works pretty good to do that second Tuesday. Wendy, aren't you usually good the second Tuesday? It's the fourth Tuesday that's bad, right?
Other way around. The fourth Tuesday is good for me. The second Tuesday, I have med stuff. And I'm now the president, so I have to show up. I can't skip it.
It would be the second, the fourth. I was going to say the 23rd. That should give us all time to get vaccinated.
I believe
That'd be
that's also
nice.
when our re-elections or the internal turnovers are.
I think they are in March, aren't they? Yeah, the third, I think, of the authority members would be up for renomination.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
Chairman,
it's March.
we'll be reviewing those and reaching out to see if members would like to stay on or have the, we're going through that process right now, looking at who, what board members would like to stay on. And then if we have any others that we would appoint onto the board.
Okay, so I think that we'll double check, but I'm pretty sure that we'll have the same board membership for our February meeting, and then when March comes, we should probably know where we're at on that too.
We did our last appointments in this room virtually. So I think it must be March or April.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's true. Okay, so we'll meet on the fourth Tuesday, which is the 23rd. And enjoy your quarantining or whatever you're doing. I need a motion to to adjourn? Is
Move to adjourn.
there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Oh, opposed? Nobody's opposed. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.